What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we finish up our talks on the Undead Warlock. I know this is one of the fan favorites since it was introduced in Van Richten's, and I am excited to show you my take on it today. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to share the video with your friends and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. Of course, one of the best ways to support this channel would be by becoming a member down below. By clicking that join button, you can join for just $2 a month and be at that bronze snapper tier. There you will get access to all of my build guides, all of my subclass fixes, all of that in fancy write-ups for you that you can use at your table, whether it's as NPCs, whether you want to use it as a playable character for yourself, whatever it is you want to use it for, it is there for you, for those who want to give just a little bit more back to the community and help me to do what I do. There of course are higher tiers as well. Silver gets you early access to videos, gold gets special parts of the Discord server and access to helping me to pick out certain types of video topics, all of that good stuff. But of course, I'm very appreciative to all of you who are here regardless, so thank you for watching. Now before we jump into everything, I do want to talk just for a second. I put out a community post yesterday about my situation, at least hopefully it's yesterday, otherwise this video is very late. But yeah, and in case you have missed the news and all of those things, Hurricane Helene has been kind of crazy, and I kind of live in a area that was very much affected. We really weren't supposed to be affected by it, but it took a turn towards us, and it's been kind of crazy. Luckily, myself and my family and everybody that I know are okay. We don't have any injuries, casualties, anything like that. There is structural damage to my house actually, so I'm having to have that looked at, and there's been a lot of flooding, a lot of bridges and roads and that kind of things are all around me have been washed away, destroyed, or are still flooded even now. So just for those of you that pray, of course, keep everybody who are in this area and are affected in your prayers. And of course, if there are any kind of relief efforts that you can find, be sure to support those as well. I'm sure that everyone here in the community would really, really appreciate it. So with all that out of the way, let's get back to Dungeons and Dragons, the whole reason that you are here. So for the Undead Warlock, originally when I talked about this earlier, I had said that this really performs really, really well as someone that really focuses on Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast, and then you just beef it up right with your Agonizing Blast, your Repelling Blasts, your Grasp of Hadar, that kind of thing, and then you focus on getting it into kind of AoE type of stuff. And I said that was a really good way of doing this, because then you get them in the fear, and then they get stuck, and it's really cool, right? So there's a lot that can be done with that, and that's cool. But I'm not going in that direction at all, actually. I felt that was too easy. It was too simple to do it that way. So I wanted to make things more complicated. And instead, we're going with something completely different. Well, we've been doing a lot of melee builds in this series, and obviously Hexblade was last week, and so we talked about that very recently. But still, I want to go with another melee build, but this one functions a little differently, and I'm excited to show you what I have come up with today. So let's go ahead and take a look. So here, of course, are the rules for today's build and for the entire series, really. So, of course, if anything looks weird about the stats or anything like that, you may have to make adjustments per your table rules. We start off, of course, with our race, and I'm going to, again, start in a place that most people do not like, but it's all good. Custom lineage, here we go once again. We are taking a lot of feats here, and we also need a lot of ASIs, so getting a feat early is going to be really, really important on this build. Of course, if your stats work out better with Variant Human, by all means take that. They're essentially the same thing except for how the ASIs work out initially, so just whichever one works better for you. And the feat that we're taking here at level 1 is a weird one. It's going to be the Shield Master feat. Now, Shield Master is not one that I have really worried about taking in a very long time. We took Shield Master way back, I remember, in our Artificer series when we were talking about that, which is where this series all began years and years ago. I've had people in my comments asking me, why are you still doing 2014 stuff? Why are you still going through that? Because I started this series a really long time ago, and it means a lot to me that I finish it, and I can't help that Wizards decided to release new rules and, you know, couldn't come up with a brand new system on their own. They had to make a 5.5e, but oh well. I'm gonna finish out this series, and then we will move on to 2024 stuff once we finish up with Wizard and all that good stuff. So yeah, this is a really cool one. And so Shieldmaster is one that I haven't really explored in a while, but it comes with some really interesting benefits and allows you to offensively benefit from a shield in addition to the obvious defensive things that you get, and we'll see what that means here in just a second. Next up, we got our stats, and of course, we're going with the modified standard array, like you saw in the rules. We're gonna put our highest stat into charisma, our second highest into strength. You, of course, can flip-flop these depending on what you prefer. Then constitution is gonna go third, dexterity fourth, and then we are going to have to dump wisdom and intelligence. Unfortunately, very sad to have to do wisdom that way, but it is what it is. We get a +2 from that custom lineage, and I'm going to go ahead and throw that into my strength actually, so that I can get 2 really high stats there, because we're going to be using strength a bunch as a melee build, and we're not a hexblade, so we don't get to just go with charisma. Although I will give you an alternative version of this build a little bit later where you would be okay, and you don't necessarily have to focus on strength all that much outside of multi-classing type of things. For our equipment, we're going to actually grab some heavy armor here, and so I think you guys can kind of get the feel of where we may be starting this. We're also going to grab a warhammer. Really, any bludgeoning weapon is going to be fine here, but I'm going to go ahead and just say a warhammer because generally that's going to be the best one. And of course, a shield. We're taking the Shieldmaster feat, and so we are going to take a shield to go along with it. So let's go ahead and start taking some levels. At level 1, we are not going to be a warlock, surprising absolutely no one, but we're not going to be a fighter either. Instead, we're going to be a paladin. A paladin is a really great place to start here because, number 1, we of course share that affinity for charisma, which is great, but at the same time, we also get a lot of weapon proficiencies, we get all armor proficiencies, we get all that fun stuff, so we're going to be a lot tankier, which is great. We also get a better hit die on this as well, so for the levels that we do take in paladin, we're going to get a better and better amount of HP every time we gain a level, which is pretty cool. This will be a somewhat deep dive into Paladin, and you'll see why here in just a little bit, but it's a really interesting interaction, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. At Paladin 1, of course, if you have not seen my Paladin series, I'll put the iCard above up there for my general Paladin guide, and so you can check that out if you haven't seen it, if you have questions about any particular type of thing that is specific to the Paladin. We get Divine Sense and Lay on Hands here. Divine Sense is kind of your spidey sense when it comes to certain type of creatures. Kind of cool. Definitely will come up from time to time. And Lay on Hands is possibly one of the best healing spells, well, spell-like effects, I guess, in the game. It's fantastic because this is the absolute best way to pick people up from 0, because then you get 5 HP per paladin level, and you can spend it however you want, right? So if somebody hits 0, pop 1 HP and you're good, right? You didn't waste a spell slot on something, like, and you don't have to really worry about any of that. It's great. The only thing is that it is melee, and so you've just got to be able to get really close to somebody. But as far as efficiency of moving HP over to someone else or even yourself, it doesn't get any better, and that is absolutely fantastic. And we are going to be getting several levels in Paladin, so this feature actually will be pretty viable, so that's pretty great. Next up, we're going to get Paladin 2, and we're going to go ahead and get a fighting style here. I would go ahead and say either defense, because we definitely have armor, or protection. Now, protection is maybe a little bit more situational just because you do have to be near people, but the ability there is really, really nice. Do not take interception. That is absolutely a trap, but protection is actually not that bad. I think it's pretty cool. We also get spellcasting and Divine Smite. Divine Smite is great here because then we can burn spell slots for extra damage, which is fantastic. Speaking of spells, we get spellcasting here. Of course, we don't get any cantrips, but we do get first level spells. Bless is, of course, one we're going to take every single time. And the other one I would grab is Wrathful Smite. This gives us another way to cause fear, and fear is going to be a big deal on this build, and we are going to use it to our advantage in every way that we possibly can, and you'll see what I mean as we go. Speaking of fear, we get at 3rd level, we're going to go ahead and start our journey in Warlock. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can do this level structure, and I'll mention a couple of ways once we get toward the end of how you can possibly mix up these levels. This may not be the most efficient way depending on how your table goes, and depending on your campaign and what you're going to be fighting, you may need to switch these around. I can see this one being a little bit more flexible than some of my others. So at Warlock 1, of course, we get Pact Magic, which we'll come back to, and Form of Dread. Form of Dread is a great way of spreading fear. One of the most efficient ways of spreading fear in Dungeons and Dragons, to be honest. It's absolutely incredible how well this works, especially in combination with your Eldritch Blast, and we're going to allow it to become better and better with other ways as well, and you'll see what I mean by that. For cantrips here, I'm going to grab Booming Blade, obviously, although we may not hang on to this for forever just because Booming Blade isn't always going to be our best friend. It does deal a little bit of extra damage, but honestly, I don't think we're going to use this forever, so might swap it out later. And of course, Eldritch Blast, which we will keep forever. For 1st level spells, I'd grab things like Hex and maybe even Cause Fear. We definitely will drop Cause Fear later, but at least for now, it's not that bad. So, it's an okay middling option. Gives you another way to possibly do some fear stuff, but I would rely on my other features a little more than I would that. At Warlock 2, we're going to get our Eldritch Invocations, and of course, Agonizing Blast. We're going to take that every single time just for that extra damage. And then for the other one, it doesn't really matter because we're going to drop it next level. So, pick whatever you want. Doesn't matter. It's going away here in just a second. At Warlock 3, we're going to get our Pact Boon. Now, this is where we create a crossroads, right? And so I was going to mention this at the end, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. So essentially here, you can go one of two routes. You can go Pact of the Blade, which is the way that we're going to go today. And that way you get all of the fun stuff with Pact of the Blade. You also get certain invocations that go with Pact of the Blade. That's what we're going to do today. However, there is an alternate world where you could, instead of taking a Warhammer, you take a club or some other kind of wooden weapon. And instead here you go Tome Lock and you actually pick up Shillelagh. That is another way you can do this and focus solely on charisma. I'm not going that way because I would rather go ahead and get all of the benefits from Pact of the Blade. I already need strength anyway because I'm a paladin, so I don't really mind it as much because I already have to spend some of my points in order to make strength okay. So I'm okay with it. It's really not that bad for me. I've accepted that, but that is another way you can possibly do it. And so with that Pact of the Blade, we now get to swap one of our invocations. We're going to go ahead and switch that now to Improved Pact Weapon. This is going to make that weapon magical, which is great. It also allows it to be our spellcasting focus, which is very important because if we are holding a shield in one hand, that means we can't really do somatic components, which can be a problem. This means we can hold that weapon and that is going to fulfill that somatic component for us, which is fantastic. We definitely want that. It helps out a lot. Also, of course, if there are material components that are non-costly, that will help us with that as well, so that's great. But of course, if you have components that are costly, then we just have to do that anyway. So we also get second level spells here, and I would actually suggest grabbing Cloud of Daggers. It's a fun one, right? Just to have it in the back pocket. We're not going to use it a ton, but it is there, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. Then we also have Hold Person and Misty Step as some nice backup options. Warlock 4, very crucial. We get our first ASI or feat here, and we're taking the Crusher feat. Crusher is huge, right? This is why we needed that bludgeoning weapon in order to have the Crusher feat come online. So not only does this give us a boost to our strength, right, in order to give us that even number here to give us a boost, it also allows us to move people, right? We get to push them 5 feet, which is great, especially considering what we're going to be setting up with Warlock just a little bit later. But at least for now, one thing we can do, if you have the ability to do so, if you can set the Cloud of Daggers, and again, this can be very difficult for right now, But if you could set Cloud of Daggers and knock somebody into it with Crusher, they're going to take damage when they enter, and then they're going to take damage when they start their turn in it, which is cool. So extra damage there. That's going to be very difficult to pull off right now, but we will make it easier later, I promise. Don't worry, it'll get there. Warlock 5, we get no features, but we do get another Eldritch Invocation, and we get Thirsting Blade here. This gives us the equivalent of extra attack. Now, you might be thinking, you're going back to Paladin in a little bit, and you're getting extra attack. You're right, but that's also quite a ways away, and I want extra attack now, and I can always swap this out later. So I'm going to take this for now, and when I do get back to Warlock after going with the Paladin levels, then I will obviously swap this out for something else because I won't need it anymore. For third level spells, I'm going to grab Fear, and of course drop Cause Fear at this point because that's pointless in comparison. And then of course your counter spells, got to have that. And then Spirit Shroud is also another one I would possibly consider. If you're not concentrating on something else, that might be a good option. And then Warlock 6, Grave Touched. I really like this feature a lot. We talked about it a lot earlier this week. If you have not seen that video, make sure to check that out. So obviously here at this point, I think that we can now consider going back to Paladin. Now, I think that there's also an argument that we could have done this a little bit earlier, even as early as right before Warlock 5, just to go ahead and get normal extra attack instead of going for Thirsting Blade at all. Definitely an option for you. But I think that really grabbing that Grave Touched is really nice for the extra damage, for one thing, and just having third level spells at Warlock 5 I think is nice. And if we're gonna go Warlock 5, we might as well go Warlock 6. So here we are. We're going Paladin 3 now. And Paladin 3 gives us a lot. We get Divine Health, which is fine. We get Harness Divine Power, which is better than fine, actually. And then we also get our Channel Divinity as normal, and we get Conquering Presence and Guided Strike, giving us yet another way to cause fear, which is great. And of course, Guiding Strike is nice too, in case the dice hate you. This can kind of help you cheat that, which is pretty cool. So Paladin 4, we get another ASI or feat, and I'm going ASIs the rest of the way. I'm gonna take 2+1s at this point and boost my Charisma and my Constitution. Of course, if you wanted to go with something like the Resilient, you could go with something like that maybe. But for me, I'm just gonna go +1/+1 and call it good there. For Paladin 5, of course, we get extra attack here, and this is kind of replacing that Thirsting Blade, as it were. So to me, that's good. And we also get second level Paladin spells at this point. 8 is a must-have, especially when you have Warlock levels, and Lesser Restoration is one that could be good if nobody else on your party already has it. Now, there is a justification here to go one more level in Warlock here, just to switch out that invocation. To me, I don't think it's worth it quite yet, but I mean, I can see going Warlock 7. You of course get 4th level spells, and you would technically get 2 invocations if you want to think about it that way. You drop one, get another one, and then you gain one that's new. Up to you, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a run at where I'm going with Paladin. So Paladin 6, I get Aura of Protection, which is really good, helping out with those saving throws for those nearby. And Paladin 7, we get Aura of Conquest. Aura of Conquest is great because it is going to lock down people that are frightened of you. We now have a bunch of ways of frightening people, and we have ways to get people within 10 feet of us. What this means is that if you are a melee creature that is trying to hit me, I can knock you out of melee and make you stuck. On top of that, we also have Shield Master. That means you're prone if I hit you with that bonus action shove attack. That can be devastating, right? Because now you're prone, and now you're laying there, you're frightened of me, everything's at disadvantage into me, everything's at advantage into you, at least from my melee friends, and that's pretty great. You can't stand up because your speed's 0, and yeah, you're stuck, and that's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. I love this. I think it's absolutely wonderful to be able to do this. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love it. And then of course, then you can drop a Cloud of Daggers on them while they're laying there, and that's a lot of fun too. So why not? It's great. It's a lot of fun. So now we're gonna go back to Warlock, and we're going to stay there. the rest of the way. So at Warlock 7, we get, of course, no features, but we do get a new Warlock invocation here, and we actually can also drop Thirsting Blade. I would drop Thirsting Blade here and grab Repelling Blast, and then for my new one, I would grab Grasp of Hadar. This allows me to move people around as I want to, and so if we need to bunch people up for an AoE, if I need to move people closer to me, whatever it happens to be, that forced movement is great. We have Crusher for forced movement, we have these for forced movement, and that is fantastic. Now, make sure to read the writing on that, because only one of these will allow you to do it more than one time per turn based on your Eldritch Blast beams. So make sure to very clearly read which one works where, because there is a difference, and that can definitely come into play. We also get 4th level spells here. Greater Invisibility is really the only one that I'm concerned about for right now. The rest of them, I'm not so much. Warlock 8, I'm going to grab either a +2 in Charisma or a +2 in Strength, whichever one works out better for me. Again, based on your play style. If you're more so worried about your melee hits, then go with Strength. If you're more so worried about your saving throw DCs and your attacks that try to hit, especially with your Eldritch Blasts, then I would go with Charisma. Whichever way you want to go makes perfect sense. Warlock 9, no features, but we do get another Eldritch Invocation, and with this, I would say pick your favorite. I don't think there's any more that I'm really all that focused on. I've got really everything that I'm needing. So yeah, you've got that. Lance of Lethargy, maybe. That's a good one. Maybe slow people down, but besides that, nothing really that I am all that excited about. But we do get 5th level spells here, and Hold Monster is really the only one that I'm super pumped about there. Warlock 10, we get Necrotic Husk, which can be really good. I don't mind that feature at all. Again, we talked about it in a lot of detail earlier. And then Warlock 11, we get our first round of Mystic Arcanum, and we pick up Mass Suggestion as per normal. Mass Suggestion is just objectively the best spell on that list for most characters. There definitely are some times where some other spells will be slightly better, but at least for most of the time, it's going to be Mass Suggestion. Warlock 12, we're going to go with a +2 to Charisma or Strength, whichever one is not maxed out at this point. And finally, level 20, Paladin 8. Yes, we're going back to Paladin because I think an ASI is better than the 7th level spell, because we don't get any improvement to our actual spell slots, right? Because we're Warlock. So I'm going to go back to Paladin and go Paladin 8, and we're going to get a +2 into whatever you want of your top 3, right? Go with either Charisma, Strength, or Constitution. Whatever is not maxed out, just get it a little bit closer or max it out, whichever way works out for you. So that's our build for today. I hope you all enjoyed, maybe something a little bit different with a little bit more strategy, and I think that's really cool. So for honorable mentions, we will go through these pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot really to go through on this. For other race options, I wanted to, of course, mention the Eladrin. The Eladrin, of course, offers us a lot of great mobility with its teleportation type of stuff. Really cool options depending on what season you're in. You can either take people with you, or you can do some damage, that kind of thing. It's really cool. And if the other option is actually the Dragonborn. Now, this is not going to be the original Dragonborn. Of course, this is the Fizzban improved Dragonborn, which is fantastic. It, of course, would allow you to, moving on to our feats here, take the Dragon Fear feat. Dragon Fear is great, which gives us another fear effect, which I think is really cool. And of course, there are some other races that do this as well. Leonin is another option if you wanted to go with that. But for other feats, Warcaster makes a lot of sense as well. Just didn't have room for it this time around, but it is an absolute fantastic option. And finally, for other options in multiclassing, Sorcerer, obviously being able to quicken certain things would be really helpful here. I would love that. And Fighter, of course, would give us a lot of the same benefits as Paladin, but to me it just kind of slows the build down in this case, especially since we needed 7 levels in Paladin. And finally, for other Paladin options, the Oathbreaker makes a lot of sense here as well. I think that Conquest makes just a little bit more sense to me, but you could definitely go Oathbreaker, and I think that would make some sense as well. So that is all for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Next week, we are talking about the Undying Warlock, the very last one of the Warlock series. Then we move on to Wizard, and then we are done. Oh my goodness. Now, Wizard is going to take us a long time. It's going to take us a while, probably till the end of the year, to be honest, but we're going to get there, and then we get to move on to the new and exciting 2024 stuff, and I'm pumped about that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.